The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep rumble that echoed through the vast space. Representatives from 47 different alien species filed into their designated seats, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some floated in liquid-filled spheres, others perched on crystalline structures, and a few simply hovered in the air using technology beyond most civilizations' understanding. The emergency session had been called by the Zephyrian Empire, and everyone knew what that meant. War was coming to another corner of the galaxy. Ambassador Kethvar stepped forward onto the central platform, his reptilian features gleaming under the chamber's artificial light. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as conquerors, having claimed 17 star systems in the past century alone. Their military might was respected and feared in equal measure. Honored members of the council, Kethvar began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's acoustics. The Zephyrian Empire comes before you today to announce our intention to claim the Sol system and its third planet, known locally as Earth. A murmur rippled through the assembled representatives. The Sol system was on the edge of known space, barely worth notice by most galactic standards. Its inhabitants, humans, had only recently achieved basic interstellar travel and were considered primitive by galactic standards. Kethvar activated a holographic display that showed the Sol system in 3 dimensions. Earth appeared as a small blue marble, its single moon orbiting nearby. Our intelligence reports indicate that the human species possesses only 12 functional warships, all using outdated kinetic weaponry. Their planetary defenses consist of primitive missile systems that would be useless against our energy shields. The display shifted to show images of human cities, their buildings reaching toward the sky, but lacking the elegant curves and impossible geometries of more advanced civilizations. The humans are divided into nearly 200 separate nations, constantly engaged in petty conflicts among themselves. They have no unified government, no coordinated military command, and no understanding of modern warfare tactics. Several council members nodded in agreement. The humans did indeed appear to be a minor species, barely worth the council's attention. Their technology was centuries behind the galactic standard, and their fractured political system seemed to indicate a species still struggling with basic cooperation. The Zephyrian fleet will begin the occupation in 6 standard months, Kethvar continued. We expect minimal resistance. The human surrender should come within days of our arrival. Their system contains valuable mineral resources and strategic positioning that will benefit the Empire's continued expansion. As the reptilian ambassador concluded his presentation, an unexpected voice spoke from the back of the chamber. I request permission to address the council. All eyes turned toward the source of the voice. In the shadows of the highest tier sat a figure that most representatives recognized but few had ever heard speak. Zorthak of the Veltar was ancient even by the standards of his long-lived species. The Veltar were known as observers and record-keepers, traveling the galaxy to document the rise and fall of civilizations. The council president, a being of pure energy contained within a geometric framework, acknowledged the request. The floor recognizes Ambassador Zorthak. The ancient alien rose slowly, his crystalline form catching and refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. As he moved toward the central platform, his age became apparent in every careful step. The Veltar lived for thousands of years, and Zorthak was old even among his people. Honored Council, Zorthak began, his voice carrying a weight that seemed to press down on the entire chamber. I have observed the human species for over 2 centuries. I have watched their wars, studied their culture, and analyzed their behavior patterns. What Ambassador Kethvar describes as weakness, I have learned to recognize as something far more dangerous. The chamber fell completely silent. The Veltar were respected throughout the galaxy for their knowledge and wisdom. When they spoke about a species, others listened. The humans are indeed divided, Zorthak continued. But this division has made them stronger, not weaker. They have spent their entire history fighting each other, learning from every conflict, adapting to every challenge. They know war in ways that most species cannot comprehend. Kethvar interrupted with a dismissive gesture. Respected elder, their primitive conflicts hardly compare to modern galactic warfare. Their weapons fire metal projectiles. Their ships move at fractions of light speed. They have no energy shields, no quantum communications, no gravitic weapons. Zorthak turned his ancient gaze toward the Zephyrian ambassador. Young conqueror, you mistake their tools for their true weapons. The humans fight with something that cannot be measured in weapon yields or shield strength. They fight with desperation, creativity, and a refusal to accept defeat that I have never witnessed in any other species. The holographic display changed as Zorthak took control of the presentation system. Images of human conflicts appeared, showing battles from throughout their history. Observe their tactics. When faced with superior numbers, they do not retreat. They adapt. When their weapons fail, they improvise new ones. When their defenses are breached, they turn their defeats into victories. The images showed humans fighting in impossible conditions, surviving disasters that would have destroyed other species, and finding ways to win battles they should have lost. The Veltar have a saying, Zorthak said, his voice growing more serious. Judge not a species by their ships, but by their scars. Humanity bears more scars than any race we have encountered, yet they persist, they adapt, and they overcome. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the observer section, representing Earth's small diplomatic presence. He had been sent to monitor the council proceedings, never expecting to become the subject of debate. As the alien representatives turned to look at him, he felt the weight of their attention and tried to remain calm. Kethvar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. Ancient One, your fears are based on conflicts between primitive tribes wielding clubs and spears. Against a modern military force with energy weapons and faster-than-light capability, their historical victories mean nothing. Zorthak's crystalline form seemed to dim. A sign that other species had learned indicated deep concern among the Veltar. Ambassador Kethvar, you fundamentally misunderstand the nature of human warfare. It is not about the weapons they carry, or the ships they fly. It is about how they think, how they fight, and most importantly, how they refuse to surrender. The ancient alien paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. I have watched 17 species fall to Zephyrian conquest. All of them were more advanced than humanity. All of them possessed superior technology and unified command structures. All of them surrendered when the cost of resistance became too high. The chamber remained silent as Zorthak delivered his final warning. Humans do not calculate the cost of resistance the same way other species do. They do not surrender when defeat becomes likely. They become more dangerous when cornered, more creative when desperate, and more determined when all hope seems lost. He turned to address the entire council, his voice carrying absolute conviction. Members of the Galactic Council, I have studied warfare across the galaxy for millennia. I have seen the rise and fall of empires, the birth and death of civilizations. In all that time observing all those species, I have learned one absolute truth about humanity. The pause stretched through the chamber like a held breath. Never go to war with humans. The silence in the chamber stretched for long moments after Zorthak delivered his warning. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others leaned forward with new interest. The ancient Veltar had never been known to exaggerate or speak without careful consideration. Council President Nexarin's energy form pulsed slowly as it processed the implications. Ambassador Zorthak, your warning is noted, but the Council requires more than general observations. Can you provide specific evidence to support your claims about humanity's combat capabilities? Zorthak moved to the center of the platform and raised one crystalline appendage. The holographic display system responded, filling the air above the assembly with images from Earth's history. I will show you what the Veltar archives have recorded during our observation of humanity. The first image showed a massive conflict, spanning multiple continents. Explosions lit up battlefields while strange flying machines dropped destruction from above. This is what humans call their Second World War. Note the scale of the conflict. Nearly every nation on their planet was involved in combat simultaneously. Representative Quillen of the Peaceful Ether Collective gasped at the images. They fought across their entire world at once? How did their civilization survive such devastation? That is precisely the point, Zorthak replied. Most species would have collapsed under such strain. Humans not only survived but emerged stronger. During this conflict, they developed nuclear weapons in less than 4 years. Most galactic civilizations require centuries to achieve nuclear technology during peacetime. The display shifted to show massive mushroom clouds rising over cities. The assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as the images revealed the complete destruction of 2 population centers. They used these weapons against themselves, Zorthak continued. But observe what happened next. Instead of destroying their world in nuclear fire, they created what they called the Cold War. For decades, 2 human superpowers possessed enough nuclear weapons to destroy their planet many times over. Ambassador Velneth of the Crystalline Hegemony spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. They held world-ending weapons pointed at each other for decades. How did they avoid mutual annihilation? Through a concept they called deterrence, Zorthak explained. Each side knew that attacking would result in their own destruction, so they found other ways to compete. They fought proxy wars on distant continents, raced to reach their moon, and pushed the boundaries of technology through controlled conflict. Captain Morrison watched the alien faces around him grow more concerned as the presentation continued. He had been briefed that this moment might come, but seeing the galactic community's reaction to humanity's history was still unsettling. The display changed again, showing more recent conflicts from Earth. Observe their modern warfare tactics, Zorthak said. Humans do not simply overwhelm enemies with superior numbers or technology. They study their opponents, adapt their strategies in real time, and turn disadvantages into advantages. Images showed human soldiers operating in harsh environments, from frozen mountains to burning deserts. The aliens watched as humans demonstrated their ability to fight effectively in conditions that would be lethal to most species. Notice how they improvise, Zorthak pointed out. When their equipment fails, they create new weapons from available materials. When their plans fall apart, they develop new tactics on the battlefield. When they face impossible odds, they find ways to even the playing field. Ambassador Kethvar stepped forward, his reptilian features showing growing irritation. Respected Elder, these are impressive displays of primitive warfare, but you are comparing conflicts between equally matched human forces. Against superior alien technology, their adaptability would be meaningless. Zorthak turned his ancient gaze toward the Zephyrian. You assume that superior technology guarantees victory. The Veltar archives contain records of 43 different species that believed the same thing when they encountered humanity. 43 species? Kethvar's voice carried a note of surprise. Humans have fought 43 different alien civilizations? No, Zorthak replied quietly. 43 species have observed humanity and reached the same conclusion you have. All of them decided that humans would be easy to conquer. None of them followed through with actual invasion attempts once they completed their analysis. The Dar chamber buzzed with quiet conversations as representatives processed this information. The idea that dozens of species had considered and then abandoned plans to invade Earth was news to most of the Council. The most recent example was the Corvian Empire, Zorthak continued. They spent 3 years planning an invasion of Earth, confident that their energy weapons and shield technology would ensure quick victory. Their invasion fleet was already assembled when their intelligence division completed a detailed study of human behavior patterns. The display showed sleek alien warships gathered in space, their hulls gleaming with advanced technology. The Corvians realized that humans do not fight to win in the conventional sense. They fight to ensure that victory against them comes at an unacceptable cost. New images appeared, showing human rescue operations during natural disasters. Humans were pulling survivors from collapsed buildings, flying helicopters into dangerous storms and risking their lives to save strangers. Humans routinely sacrifice themselves for others, even people they have never met, Zorthak explained. This behavior extends to warfare. They will accept massive casualties to achieve objectives that other species would abandon as too costly. Representative Talara of the Hive Minds Collective spoke for the first time, her multiple voices creating harmonious tones. This suggests they do not value individual survival as highly as most species. On the contrary, Zorthak corrected. They value individual life highly, but they value freedom and independence even more. A human will die before accepting slavery or subjugation. An entire human population will fight to extinction rather than surrender their autonomy. The display shifted again, showing human space installations and their small fleet of interstellar vessels. The Corvians discovered that humans had quietly prepared for alien invasion for decades. Every space station serves dual civilian and military purposes. Every mining operation in their asteroid belt could be converted to weapons production. Every communication satellite could coordinate planetary defense. Captain Morrison felt a chill as he realized how much the aliens had learned about Earth's hidden preparations. The defensive strategies that military planners thought were secret had been observed and catalogued by alien watchers for years. But most concerning to the Corvians, Zorthak continued, was the discovery of humanity's ultimate defensive doctrine. Humans call it mutually assured destruction, and they apply it not just to nuclear warfare, but to the concept of invasion itself. The images showed Earth's sun, brilliant and massive at the center of the solar system. Human scientists have calculated that a coordinated nuclear strike on their star could destabilize its fusion process. The resulting expansion would destroy everything within 20 light-years, including any invasion fleet and potentially the invader's home system. The chamber erupted in shocked voices as representatives realized the implications. Several species began rapid calculations of the distances between Earth and their own homeworlds. They would destroy their own star system to prevent conquest? Ambassador Quillen asked in horror. The humans have a saying, Zorthak replied. Give me liberty, or give me death. They mean it literally. The Corvian invasion was cancelled when their analysts concluded that humans would rather die free than live as slaves. Kethvar laughed harshly, but the sound carried less confidence than before. You speak of theoretical threats and desperate bluffs. When faced with actual overwhelming force, survival instincts would prevail. No species would actually destroy themselves rather than accept reasonable terms of surrender. Zorthak's crystalline form brightened ominously, a sign that the Veltar had learned meant extreme agitation. Ambassador Kethvar, you continue to misunderstand the fundamental nature of humanity. They are not bluffing because they are not rational in the way that other species define rationality. The ancient alien paused, gathering his thoughts before delivering his most important point. Humans do not calculate the odds of victory before deciding to fight. They calculate the cost of surrender. And in their minds, any cost is preferable to losing their freedom. The chamber fell silent again as the weight of this statement settled over the assembled representatives. The idea of a species that would choose extinction over subjugation was beyond the understanding of most galactic civilizations. The Veltar have observed many wars, Zorthak concluded. We have seen species fight for resources, territory, honor, and survival. But humans are the only species we have encountered that fights for concepts. They will die for ideas that cannot be touched, measured, or quantified. He turned to face the entire council one final time. This is why I warn against war with humanity. Victory against them requires not just defeating their military forces, but breaking their will to remain free. And that will cannot be broken by any force we have ever witnessed in the galaxy. The council chamber remained tense as Zorthak's words echoed in the minds of every representative present. Ambassador Kethvar paced behind his speaking platform, his reptilian tail swishing with agitation. The confidence he had displayed at the beginning of the session was clearly shaken. Ancient One, Kethvar said, his voice carrying forced calm. Your observations are fascinating from an academic perspective, but they remain theoretical. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 17 star systems. We understand warfare on a galactic scale. These humans fight each other with primitive weapons over patches of dirt on a single planet. Zorthak moved closer to the holographic display, his crystalline form casting strange shadows across the platform. Ambassador, you continue to focus on their tools while ignoring their minds. Allow me to show you what makes humanity truly dangerous. The display changed to show images of human children in schools, learning mathematics and science. Humans begin military education disguised as games when they are barely old enough to walk. They call it chess, and every human child learns to think several moves ahead, to sacrifice pieces for strategic advantage, and to find victory even when facing certain defeat. Representative Mordock of the Silicon Confederacy leaned forward in his crystalline chair. Many species teach strategic thinking to their young. This hardly seems unique. Observe closer, Zorthak replied. The images shifted to show human sports, competitions with massive crowds cheering as athletes push themselves to physical extremes. Humans teach their children that winning requires pain, that improvement comes through failure, and that the greatest victories come when success seems impossible. The display showed humans climbing impossible mountain peaks, diving to crushing ocean depths, and exploring frozen wastelands that would kill most life forms. They deliberately place themselves in deadly situations for no reward except the knowledge that they survived. They call it adventure, but it is actually training for the worst possible circumstances. Captain Morrison watched the alien faces around him grow more troubled as they began to understand the implications. What humans considered normal childhood activities and recreational pursuits were being interpreted as military conditioning by species that valued safety and predictability. But this is not what concerns the Veltar most, Zorthak continued. Humans possess a psychological trait that exists nowhere else in the galaxy. They call it spite. When pushed beyond their breaking point, instead of surrendering or fleeing, like rational beings, humans become more dangerous. The holographic display showed scenes of human soldiers fighting desperate battles against overwhelming odds. Observe their behavior when defeat becomes inevitable. Other species calculate survival probabilities and withdraw when the odds become unfavorable. Humans enter what they call berserker rage and fight with increased ferocity. Ambassador Velneth of the crystalline hegemony spoke up, her voice trembling. They become more aggressive when they are losing? This defies basic survival instinct. It defies logic as most species understand it, Zorthak agreed. But humans operate on a different principle. They believe that if they must fall, they will drag their enemies down with them. They have turned mutual destruction into an art form. The images changed to show human emergency responders running toward disasters that other species would flee from. Firefighters charged into burning buildings, medics ran across battlefields under enemy fire, and rescue workers dove into collapsing structures to save trapped victims. They routinely sacrificed themselves for strangers, Zorthak explained. This behavior extends to warfare in ways that make them unpredictable opponents. A human soldier will use his own body as a weapon if necessary, turning defeat into Pyrrhic victory for his enemies. Representative Quillen shifted uncomfortably in her floating sphere. You suggest they are suicidal as a species? Not suicidal, Zorthak corrected. They are willing to accept death if it serves a greater purpose. They distinguish between dying meaninglessly and dying for something they consider important. This makes them extremely difficult to deter through conventional threats. The display showed human laboratories and research facilities, where scientists worked on complex projects. When humans face problems they cannot solve with existing knowledge, they do not accept limitations. They invent new science. During wartime, this innovation accelerates dramatically. Images flashed of human technological breakthroughs achieved under pressure, radar systems developed during aerial warfare, rocket technology created for long-range weapons, computers built to calculate artillery trajectories, and satellites launched for military communication. Their greatest scientific advances often come from military necessity, Zorthak continued. They weaponize everything they discover. They split atoms to end wars, reached space to gain strategic advantage, and connected their entire planet for command and control purposes. Kithavar interrupted with growing frustration. You describe a dangerous species, but danger and effectiveness are different things. Raw aggression cannot overcome superior technology and tactics. Zorthak turned his ancient gaze toward the Zephyrian. That assumption has been the downfall of many civilizations. Humans do not rely on raw aggression. They combine ferocity with intelligence in ways that create geometric increases in combat effectiveness. The display showed human military training, exercises where soldiers practiced complex operations under extreme stress. Humans train constantly for scenarios they hope never to face. They prepare for every possible disaster, invasion, or catastrophe their minds can imagine. Most importantly, Zorthak continued, they study every enemy they encounter. The Veltar. Archives show that humans have been quietly observing galactic civilizations for decades, learning about alien technology, tactics, and psychology. Captain Morrison felt a chill as he realized how much the Veltar knew about Earth's intelligence, operations. The careful observation of alien visitors, the analysis of recovered technology, and the preparation of contingency plans had all been noticed and cataloged. Humans have already developed countermeasures for most known alien weapon systems, Zorthak revealed. They may not possess energy shields, but they understand how energy shields work and have prepared methods to overcome them. The chamber erupted in surprised voices as representatives realized the implications. Several species began urgent communications with their home governments, warning them that humanity might be more prepared for contact than anyone had assumed. They adapt to every threat, Zorthak explained over the noise. When faced with superior firepower, they develop stealth technology. When confronted with energy weapons, they create reflective armor. When attacked by faster ships, they build better missiles. The display showed human factories rapidly retooling from civilian production to military manufacturing. During their World War, humans converted automobile factories to produce tanks, radio manufacturers to build radar systems, and clothing companies to make parachutes. Their entire civilization can shift to war production in months. Representative Talara spoke with her multiple harmonious voices. You suggest they have the industrial capacity to support prolonged conflict against advanced civilizations? Their industrial capacity is not their greatest asset, Zorthak replied. Their creativity under pressure is what makes them truly formidable. Humans improvise solutions to problems that would stop other species entirely. The images showed human engineers building bridges from salvaged materials, soldiers creating weapons from spare parts, and civilians organizing resistance movements using household items. They turn every setback into an opportunity to learn and adapt. But the most dangerous aspect of human psychology, Zorthak continued, is their approach to defeat itself. When humans lose a battle, they do not accept the loss as final. They study what went wrong, develop new tactics, and return stronger than before. The display showed the same human nations that had fought devastating wars later becoming allies and trading partners. They learn from every enemy they face, often turning former foes into future friends. But they never forget the lessons those conflicts taught them. Kethavar stood silent for long moments, processing everything he had heard. The other representatives waited as the implications of Zorthak's presentation sank in. Finally, the Zephyrian ambassador spoke. Even if everything you say is true, humans remain a primitive species with limited technology. Their psychological traits may be interesting, but they cannot overcome the physical limitations of their equipment. Zorthak's crystalline form dimmed to its lowest level, a sign that even the patient Veltar were reaching the limits of their diplomatic restraint. Ambassador Kethvar, you have listened to everything I have said and learned nothing from it. The ancient alien moved to the center of the platform one final time. Humans do not need superior technology to be dangerous. They need only the will to use whatever they have in ways their enemies cannot predict or counter. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the chamber. The Veltar have observed warfare across the galaxy for millennia. We have seen empires rise and fall, watched civilizations destroy each other, and recorded the patterns that lead to victory or defeat. Zorthak's voice carried absolute conviction as he delivered his final warning about human nature. In all our observation, 6 months after the Galactic Council session, the Zephyrian warfleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 3,000 ships of various sizes spread across the darkness, beyond Pluto's orbit, their hulls gleaming with advanced alloys and bristling with energy weapons that could reduce planets to ash. Admiral Kethmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominant Fang, watching the tactical displays that showed the pathetic human defenses. 12 small ships hung in space near Earth's moon, their crude metal hulls looking like toys compared to his massive dreadnoughts. Scan the system for additional vessels, Kethmore ordered his sensor operator. Complete scan finished, Admiral, came the reply. 12 operational warships detected. No hidden fleets. No defensive platforms beyond their moon. Their largest vessel is barely 200 meters long. Kethmore allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Ambassador Kethvar had been right after all. The ancient Veltar's warnings had been the fears of an overcautious species that had grown weak from too many years of peace. Open a communication channel to the human fleet, the Admiral commanded. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the human flagship. A middle-aged man in a dark blue uniform looked back at him with calm eyes. The nameplate. On his uniform read Captain Ben Taylor. Human vessel, Kethmore began, his voice carrying the authority of inevitable conquest. I am Admiral Kethmore of the Zephyrian Empire. Your system is now under our protection. Surrender your ships and prepare your planet for occupation. Resistance will result in the destruction of your cities. Captain Taylor studied the alien admiral for a moment before responding. His voice was steady and carried no trace of fear. Admiral, this is Captain Ben Taylor of the Earth Defense Force. Your ships are not welcome in our system. Turn around and leave, or we will make you leave. Kethmore laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. Captain, you command 12 small ships against 3,000. Your weapons are primitive projectiles against our energy shields. Surely even humans can understand such simple mathematics. Taylor's expression did not change. Admiral, mathematics won't help you here. This is our home, and we will defend it. Very well, Kethmore replied. You have chosen destruction over wisdom. He cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. Begin the attack. Target their largest vessels first. The Zephyrian fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their energy cannons charging for the first volley. The human ships scattered immediately, breaking formation and flying in seemingly random directions throughout the solar system. Cowards, Kethmore muttered. They flee before we even fire. But something was wrong. The human ships were not running away from the system. Instead, they were using the gravity of planets and moons to slingshot themselves at impossible speeds, coming at the Zephyrian fleet from unexpected angles. The first human ship, the Guardian, came screaming out of Jupiter's shadow at 3 times its normal maximum speed. It fired a spread of nuclear missiles before the Zephyrians could react, then disappeared behind one of the gas giant's moons. Impossible, the sensor operator reported. Their ship achieved those velocities using gravitational acceleration. They turned the planet itself into a catapult. The nuclear missiles struck 3 Zephyrian cruisers, but the energy shields held. However, the explosions created electromagnetic pulses that interfered with the alien ship's sensors and communications. Primitive nuclear weapons, Kethmore scoffed. They cannot penetrate our defenses. Then the asteroids began moving. Hundreds of rocks in the asteroid belt suddenly activated ion drives that had been hidden inside them for years. The asteroids accelerated toward the Zephyrian fleet, not as random projectiles but as guided weapons under precise control. Sir, the tactical officer called out in alarm. The entire asteroid belt is under their command. Every rock larger than a kilometer has been fitted with propulsion systems. Kethmore stared at the display as thousands of asteroids began converging on his fleet. How is this possible? Our intelligence showed no such preparations. They hid the drives inside natural rock formations, the sensor operator explained. The technology is crude but effective. Each asteroid is essentially a massive kinetic missile. The first wave of guided asteroids slammed into the Zephyrian formation. Energy shields designed to stop directed energy weapons proved less effective against multi-billion-ton rocks moving at orbital velocities. Several smaller ships were destroyed outright, while larger vessels found their shields overloaded and failing. All ships evasive maneuvers, Kethmore ordered. Focus fire on the asteroids before they reach us. But the human ships had not been idle during the asteroid bombardment. They emerged from behind planets and moons, firing spreads of missiles at the Zephyrian vessels while their shields were down. Captain Susan Walsh commanded the human ship Defiance as it raced toward the Zephyrian flagship. Her vessel had been badly damaged by energy weapon fire, atmosphere bleeding from several hull breaches, but she maintained course. "Captain," her weapons officer reported, "we've lost main engines and half our missile tubes. We can't outrun their interceptors." Walsh studied the tactical display, calculating distances and velocities. "Then we don't run. All power to forward shields. Prepare for ramming speed." "Ma'am, that will destroy us," her tactical officer protested. "That's the idea," Walsh replied grimly. "But we're taking that flagship with us. All hands, brace for impact." The Defiance accelerated directly toward the dominant Fang, its damaged hull groaning under the stress. Zephyrian fighters swarmed around, it firing energy weapons that tore chunks from its armor. But nothing could stop its final charge. "Admiral," Kethmore's tactical officer called out in panic. "The human ship is on a collision course. They're going to ram us." "Impossible," Kethmore replied. "No species commits suicide for tactical advantage." The Defiance struck the dominant Fang's shield generator section at nearly 1/10 the speed of light. The explosion lit up the solar system like a second sun, destroying both ships and crippling 2 nearby Zephyrian cruisers. But before the Defiance died, Captain Walsh transmitted all the tactical data her sensors had gathered about Zephyrian shield frequencies, weapon patterns, and ship configurations to every human vessel in the system. Within hours, the humans had adapted their weapons to exploit the weaknesses they had discovered. Their missiles began penetrating Zephyrian shields more effectively, and their own crude energy weapons started causing real damage to alien hulls. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender demands from the human fleet." Kethmore stared at the transmission. "Surrender demands? From them?" The message was simple and came from Captain Ben Taylor aboard the Guardian. "Admiral Kethmore, you have now experienced human warfare. We have lost all 12 of our original warships, but your fleet has lost over 200 vessels. Our converted civilian ships and mining platforms are still fighting. Withdraw now, or we will destroy every ship in your fleet." "They're fighting with cargo haulers and asteroid miners," the tactical officer reported. "Some of their weapons appear to be industrial equipment converted for combat use." Kethmore watched his tactical display as human ships that had never been designed for war continued to attack his fleet. Mining ships used their rock-cutting lasers to slice through Zephyrian hulls. Cargo vessels rammed enemy fighters with their massive cargo bays. Even individual humans in spacesuits were attaching explosive charges to the hulls of Zephyrian ships. "Admiral," his chief science officer called from across the bridge, "we're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the human system. They appear to be charging every nuclear weapon on their planet simultaneously." The main view screen activated without being commanded, showing the calm face of a human scientist. "Admiral Kethmore, this is Dr. Alex Rodriguez of Earth Strategic Defense Command. I wanted to inform you of our current situation." "Human," Kethmore snarled. "You are in no position to make demands." Dr. Rodriguez smiled calmly. "Admiral, you've been fighting our fleet for 3 weeks. What you haven't noticed is that we've spent that time analyzing your technology, reverse engineering your weapons, and adapting your own systems against you." The display behind Rodriguez showed technical schematics of Zephyrian ships with detailed breakdowns of their weaknesses. "We've also been preparing our final defensive measure. Every nuclear weapon on Earth is currently targeted at our sun." Kethmore felt his blood turn cold. "You're bluffing. No species would destroy their own star system. We've calculated the exact yield needed to destabilize our sun's fusion process," Rodriguez continued with scientific detachment. "The resulting supernova will destroy everything within 20 light years. Your homeworld of Zephyr Prime is 18 light years from here." The Admiral stared at the human scientist, trying to detect any sign of deception. He found none. "You would murder billions of your own people to stop us?" "Admiral," Rodriguez replied quietly, "we would rather die free than live as slaves. The choice is yours. Withdraw your fleet, or we all die together." Kethmore looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. 3 weeks of fighting humans had taught them that these creatures did not bluff about matters of life and death. They meant exactly 3 months after the failed Zephyrian invasion, the Galactic Council convened another emergency session. This time, the chamber held a different atmosphere entirely. Representatives who had once dismissed humanity as primitive now spoke in hushed tones about the species that had defeated a galactic superpower with 12 obsolete warships. Ambassador Kethvar stood before the council, but his proud bearing from months earlier had been replaced by a defeated slump. His reptilian features showed the stress of explaining his empire's humiliating retreat to the galactic community. Honored Council, Kethvar began, his voice lacking its former confidence. The Zephyrian Empire formally withdraws its claim to the Sol system. We also request that humanity be granted immediate membership in the Galactic Council as an independent sovereign species. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The same ambassador who had mocked human capabilities now advocated for their inclusion in galactic politics. Council President Nex Iron's energy form pulsed with curiosity. Ambassador Kethvar, please explain what occurred during your fleet's encounter with human forces. Kethvar's tail dragged on the floor as he activated the holographic display. Images appeared of damaged Zephyrian ships limping away from Earth's solar system. We entered the human system with 3,000 vessels. We departed with fewer than 800 functional ships. The chamber fell silent as representatives absorbed the magnitude of the defeat. The Zephyrian Empire had lost over 2/3 of their invasion fleet to a species they had considered primitive. How did this happen? Representative Quillen asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The humans did not fight like any species we have encountered, Kethvar explained. They turned their entire solar system into a weapon. Asteroids became guided missiles. Planets became gravitational catapults. Even their civilian ships became instruments of war. The display showed footage of human vessels ramming Zephyrian ships, accepting certain destruction to inflict damage on the enemy. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation if it serves their strategic goals. Our military doctrine has no counter for opponents who embrace death as a tactical option. Ambassador Zorthak rose slowly from his seat in the upper tier. The ancient Veltar moved to the central platform with the careful dignity of someone who had been proven correct, but took no pleasure in the validation. Honored Council, Zorthak, said his crystalline voice carrying across the chamber. The Veltar archives have recorded the complete engagement between human and Zephyrian forces. With the Council's permission, I would like to share our analysis. The holographic display changed to show tactical recordings from the battle. Observe how humans adapt to each new threat in real time. When their original ships were destroyed, they converted mining vessels and cargo haulers into warships within hours. The images showed human engineers welding weapons onto civilian spacecraft while the battle raged around them. Most species require months or years to retrofit civilian vessels for military use. Humans accomplish this modification during active combat. Representative Talara spoke with her multiple harmonious voices. How is such rapid adaptation possible? Humans design everything with multiple purposes, Zorthak explained. Their civilian infrastructure includes hidden military capabilities. Their mining equipment doubles as weapons. Their communication networks serve as command and control systems. Their entire civilization is prepared for war even during peacetime. The display showed Dr. Rodriguez's final transmission to Admiral Kethmore, where the human scientist calmly threatened to destroy Earth's sun. But most significantly, humans demonstrated their ultimate deterrent. They proved willing to commit species suicide rather than accept conquest. A new voice spoke from the observer section. May I address the council? All eyes turned toward Captain Jake Morrison, who had been promoted to admiral following the successful defense of Earth. He stood in the human delegation area, wearing the blue uniform of Earth's Space Defense Force. The floor recognizes Admiral Morrison of Earth, President Nexarin announced. Morrison walked to the central platform, his movements showing the confidence of someone representing a species that had just proved its worth in the most decisive way possible. Honored representatives, humanity did not seek conflict with the Zephyrian Empire. We defended ourselves when attacked. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces that now regarded humans with a mixture of respect and fear. We understand that our methods appear extreme to other species, but freedom is not negotiable for humanity. We will pay any price to preserve our independence. The holographic display showed images of Earth cities being rebuilt after the battle, with humans working together to repair the damage from orbital bombardment. We do not celebrate the destruction we caused. Every Zephyrian life lost was a tragedy, but we will not apologize for defending our home. Representative Mordock of the Silicon Confederacy leaned forward. Admiral Morrison, your species' tactics appear to violate several galactic conventions regarding proportional response and civilian protection. Morrison's expression hardened slightly. Representative, those conventions were written by species that have never faced extinction. When someone threatens to enslave your entire planet, conventional rules become meaningless. Ambassador Velneth spoke up, her crystalline voice trembling. But Admiral, your willingness to destroy your own star system threatens neighboring systems as well. How can the galaxy trust a species capable of such actions? The same way we trust any species with nuclear weapons, Morrison replied calmly, by understanding that mutual destruction is a deterrent, not a goal. We had no desire to trigger a supernova. We simply wanted the Zephyrians to understand that conquering us would cost them everything they valued. Zorthak stepped forward, his ancient presence commanding attention. The Admiral speaks truth. Humans seek peace but prepare for war. They offer friendship but promise annihilation to enemies. This duality makes them ideal members for a galactic community that values both cooperation and security. Representative Quillen floated closer in her sphere. But how can we interact normally with a species that considers mutual destruction an acceptable diplomatic tool? Morrison smiled for the first time since taking the platform. The same way humans interact with each other, Representative. We've been managing mutually assured destruction for over 70 years. We understand the difference between deterrence and aggression. The display showed images of human diplomats working with various alien species, demonstrating peaceful cooperation and technological exchange. Humanity wants to join the galactic community as equals, not conquerors. We offer our friendship to any species willing to treat us with respect. And to those who see us as potential prey? Ambassador Kethvar asked quietly. Morrison's expression grew serious. We hope they learn from your experience, Ambassador. We don't want to fight anyone else. But if forced to defend ourselves again, we will use every tool at our disposal. Council President Nexerin's energy form pulsed as it processed the implications. Admiral Morrison, what assurances can humanity provide that your defensive capabilities will not be used for aggressive expansion? Our entire history, Morrison replied. Humans have never sought to conquer other species. We've explored space to satisfy curiosity, not to build empires. We fight only when attacked and seek peace, as soon as resistance ends. Zorthak stepped forward one final time. The Veltar have observed humanity for centuries. They speak truth. Humans are dangerous to enemies but loyal to friends. They make excellent allies and terrible opponents. The ancient alien looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. I recommend that the Council grant humanity full membership with all rights and protections. Any species foolish enough to attack them deserves whatever fate humans choose to deliver. The vote was unanimous. Every representative, including Ambassador Kethvar, supported humanity's admission to the Galactic Council. As the session ended, representatives began approaching Admiral Morrison to discuss trade agreements, technological exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. The species that had been dismissed as primitive just months earlier was now courted as a valuable ally. Ambassador Zorthak approached Morrison as the chamber emptied. Admiral, your species both terrifies and fascinates the galaxy. You fight like cornered predators, think like cunning survivors, and sacrifice like devoted guardians. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. We've learned that survival requires being willing to do what others won't. We hope we never have to prove that again. The galaxy hopes the same thing, Zorthak replied. But it's comforting to know that someone is willing to pay the ultimate price for freedom. It makes all of us a little safer. As Morrison prepared to return to Earth with news of humanity's acceptance into the galactic community, He reflected on the price of that acceptance. Humanity had gained respect through strength, earned peace through preparing for war, and secured freedom by proving they would rather die than surrender it. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. Humans could be friends, allies, and partners in building a better future. But to anyone who came as a conqueror, they offered only one promise. You may kill us, but you will not enslave us, and you will pay a price that makes victory meaningless. The ancient Veltar warning had been proven true in the most decisive way possible.